Hi, everybody. Welcome to Live with Anna. Hey, girl.
Hey, how are you?
So good. I'm so glad that we actually got to do this. We've been having all these crazy issues, but you are here.
Yes.
I love that. How are you, first of all, before we get into everything?
I'm doing well. I can't complain. I'm so excited to be here. I love, love, love what you're doing, and I'm excited to be a part of it. So thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you for hopping on. And so, actually, Anna, I met you in college. I'm trying to date myself here. I don't even know how many years ago it was at this point.
I know,
But
right?
but I know I met you my freshman year, and we kind of were in different groups, different spaces. So I think after freshman year, I really didn't see you too much. But
Yeah.
I've been keeping track with you through social media and just seeing all the incredible things you're doing. So I'm excited to let people know everything that you're doing as well.
Thank you.
So I love asking about people's names first, just to kind of break the ice. So tell me
Yeah.
about your name. Do you like it? What does it mean?
Yeah. So my name is Ana Tibisay. My grandmother's name was Anna, so they just gave me the name Anna. And then Tibisay was actually a maid in a telenovela.
Oh, wow.
Right. For
Which
some reason,
telenovela?
I don't know. I should ask that. And once they told me, I was kind of like, okay. Because it was my sister, one of my older sisters saw a novela and she was like, oh, Tibisay, and somehow convinced my mom to name me Tibisay. I was like, is that how that works? Like, so they just gave me the name. And, growing up, I was like, I mean, okay. But I've learned to like it because it's unique. There's not a lot of people with my name.
Yeah.
Literally have never met anyone with the name Tibisay except for now my daughter, whom I named Gianna Tibisay. Um, and yeah, and so Anna means grace, it means favor, and Tibisay doesn't really have a meaning, but I researched and they have random theories, and it's a well balanced, down to earth person.
Oh, I will take it. That
Yeah,
is good. That's
that's
awesome.
what I said. I was like, okay.
I'm glad you pronounced it. Go ahead and pronounce your last name for us too, just so we don't
Yeah,
say it wrong.
right. It's Ayobiojo.
Ayobiojo. Okay.
Yeah, it took me a long time to learn it too.
I feel like, oh, I went from one easy last name to another easy last name, so there's no mixing it up.
Right.
Awesome. Well, I would love to hear a little bit more about your story. I don't actually know too much about it, so this is
Yeah.
going to be new for me too. But talk to me a little bit about what your journey with God has been like, and kind of what's led you here.
Yeah. So my journey with God has been, interesting as all stories are. I grew up Catholic most of my life until my early 20s. And no offense to any Catholics, but my Catholic journey, I did things because I had to, and it was mostly upbringing and, parents telling you have to go to church. So I went to church, I did my first communion and all those things, and it was ritualistic and I didn't really have a relationship with God. So I kind of did whatever I wanted, but I would go to church. And then I met my boyfriend, my now husband, and he was a Christian and he introduced me to his world. And I was like, okay. And they're lifting their hands and to worship. And Catholics don't do that. We're like, kneel, get up. We don't do any of that. So I was very confused, but intrigued nonetheless. And, once I learned more about just God, I was like, oh, that's dope. There's a God that created me, that loves me for me, that I don't have to perform in order for him to love me. I was like, I like that, especially because I grew up, I felt like I had to do stuff in order to be worthy of someone's love, or that I wasn't good enough, or, all those insecurities. So, that part of God, I was like, okay, I want to know more. And early on in my walk, though, I still wanted to know more, but I was kind of doing whatever I wanted because it's what I was used to. So I remember going to the second church that we were going to, and Saturday nights we were clubbing and drinking, and then woke up in the morning like, we're going to church because that's what we do. And little by little, that started changing. And then at one point, I hit rock bottom. I actually struggled with PTSD and depression from my early teens until my 20s. And as I learned more about God, I was like, you can heal me, right? You can do this. Well, let's put it to the test. And I fasted and prayed for 60 days. And it was
Wow.
an incredible, incredible journey because, it was great greatly difficult, right? Because I was struggling with symptoms, and it was to the point where the enemy was really lying to me and making me feel like, you're not a good enough mom. At that point, I was married with 2 kids, and I wanted to run away. I was ready to leave them, and I said, "You guys are better off." In my mind, I was like, "You guys are better off without me."
Wow.
It was just really bad, and I cried out to God. I went to therapy, so I everything I say is always Jesus and therapy, because He healed me, and then I walked in that healing by going to therapy. But yeah, He healed me, and I was like I have no symptoms,
Amen.
nothing at all. I have peace, I have joy, and so I'm going to tell the whole world about Jesus and what He did for me, because I'm a girl from the hood that struggled, abusive relationships, was abused, trauma, you name it, to where I am now. You know what I mean? Sound mind, peace, and now I'm a therapist. You know what I mean? So
So cool.
yeah, He's
That's
amazing like that.
incredible. It's
Yeah.
amazing. And so, like, I know you said you're a therapist. What is like your clientele? Who do you focus on helping, or is it just kind of open?
Yeah, so well, I say I'm a therapist, although I'm not practicing right now.
Mhm.
I made a switch. So I'm in Atlanta now. I moved 9 months ago. And when we moved, I was pregnant. So I have a 7-month-old. And so I've really taken the space to just be a wife and a mom and kind of help my family adjust.
Wow.
And then prior to that, when I was in Boston, I switched into clinical coaching, which is like, I describe it as a life coach meets
Mhm.
therapy. And so I did a lot of clinical coaching before I left, and I was working with college students. And now I'm kind of switching over to coaching as well, but more into like coaching women specifically. My heart is with wives and moms.
Nice. I love that. So good. And if you were to talk to like wives and moms now, like what's something that you feel like they have to know or they should know?
I mean, I would have so much to say, but I think the main thing is that we forget as wives and moms that we are individuals who also need attention. We give out so much to so many people, not only to our families and our community. We really are like the pillars, you know what I mean? But we don't take care of ourselves. And I would really just say that we have to take care of ourselves in order to give the best of us to our families and our community. Because when we don't, we're really just giving out whatever's left over, because we're running on fumes.
Yeah, for sure. You can't be running on fumes.
I know we can't.
Awesome. So if you were to like look back at your journey with God and you were to choose like a word, a theme, something that would stand out to you, what would that be?
Yeah, it would be flourishing. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I think my journey, it began like really small, and it's just flourished and flourished, as well as I have flourished. The layers have been peeled off, and exposing who God created me to be. And I think that's evident even in just my walk with Him. Like I really tried to be perfect, and the thys and that was when I was praying, to now I will mumble and stumble, but I'm real because I have that relationship with God. So it doesn't matter. I don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, flourishing.
Love that. It's so beautiful. Um,
Thanks.
so, again, within your journey, I would say like God gives us like a mission. He gives us a purpose. We have our stories, we have the things that have happened to us, we have the pain that's happened, but it's always for a purpose. So if you were to look at your life and kind of piece together, what is your mission? What is you're working on? What has God put on your heart?
Yeah. So I would definitely say my mission is to walk alongside people who are suffering, specifically in the realm of mental and emotional health, to help them peel those layers, um, and really get them to a place where they're the authentic person that God created them to be, not who they think they should be or the world thinks they should be, but really who God created them to be. And specifically to help wives and mothers take care of themselves and pour into themselves, so that they can be the best they can be. And therefore we can have like thriving marriages and thriving children and thriving communities.
Yeah, so good. And so a couple of ways that you're doing that, I was like looking at some of the links that you sent over, and you are an author, you have a podcast. Tell us a little bit about those two projects or any other projects you might be working on.
Yeah, so my book, From Survival Mode to Greatness, I just share my story. I think it's just my first step into bringing awareness to the mental health and emotional health, even though, there's a lot of talk about it now, but really being transparent about everything that I struggled with and sharing some tips, some practical things, on how I overcame PTSD and depression.
Yeah.
And then the Community Well. So the Community Well is just this place where I bring in people who have struggled, and they talk about how they overcame certain battles, from postpartum depression to dealing with grief and loss, and things that they're struggling with now. Just really a safe place for us to know that, we're all in this together, so that people listening know, I'm not the only one, and really just bring out the vulnerability and transparency, because we live in a world where we really want to be perfect, and social media depicts, perfection, because it's the highlight reel, is the best of the best of our life. And, I just want to bring it back to that rawness and that authenticity, that we're all in this together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that too, because I feel like, as women of color, our options are somewhat limited. In terms of mental health is still a taboo. I mean, I think it's getting better, obviously, but we don't see it a lot. So if I am going to like look for a podcast or even Christian related stuff, I'm not seeing people of color putting their stuff out there. And so it's so incredible. That's a different perspective. Not all of who we are, but it's definitely a part of it. And it does structure some of the way that we view things and some of the experiences that we face. So thank you for stepping out and kind of doing that. So you're also a mom, you're a wife. How many kids do you have?
I have three.
Three. So you have three kids, you've got your podcast, you're an author, you're a wife, all of these things. How do you manage, especially, I guess now, how old are your kids, by the way? I'm sorry.
I have a 9-year-old boy, a 7-year-old boy, and I have a 7-month-old girl.
Oh my gosh, precious. So yeah, so things must be a little crazy right now with them staying home from school, but you're still trying to kind of get all your other stuff. So like, how are you managing?
Yeah. Every day looks different, to be honest. I had a plan, like everybody else. We had this little schedule going through social media, and we were like, we're going to be on that. And to be honest, I was like on it some days, and then other days I was like, you have a half day. You have a fourth day. Just, but I like calling it like feeling the temperature. Like I wake up and some days, they're really animated, because we forget that they're little human beings that were thrown into this adjustment as well. So they miss their friends, and they're confused, or they're anxious. Like kids are more in touch than we think they are.
Yeah.
And so some days there's just like a lot of whining from like, 7-year-old, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's your way of saying I'm not okay. So it's that day, it'll be more spending time baking cakes, or, cooking, or, I still make them do chores. So I'm like, whatever, go outside, throw out the trash, get some fresh air, going for walks, so every day looks different for the most part. We've gotten a better feel, we start late. I try to wake up early, have my quiet time before everybody wakes up. We kind of hang out, they watch Bible stories. Then we do the homeschooling thing. Then by 12, I'm like, we all need a break. So we kind of have lunch and just hang out. Then my husband's a 8th grade math teacher, 7th and 8th grade math teacher.
That's helpful.
It's very helpful. Kind of. He's kind of strict. Like, he's really strict. So I'm like, if you want daddy to teach, like he plays no games. Whereas I'm a little bit more lenient. So I'm like, but he does take over like in the afternoon. So I have like a few hours to, work on projects and, send emails, whatever else. A lot of evenings, recording for the podcast and things like that. So it varies, but we make it work. And, some days I was like working on something now, and I'm like so tired, and, normal stuff, but we get through it and we push through,
Sure. You kind of mentioned something earlier, and I meant to bring it up, but like, so creating a podcast, writing a book, that's putting your own content out there. And I know like I'm starting to do this, and it is terrifying. So can you talk to us, just like, I know there are probably other women who have a book in their heart. They have a podcast, they have a show, they have something in their heart, but they are just maybe a little scared to do it still. Do you have anything to say to them, or what was your process like?
Yeah, for sure. So what got me, so I wrote my book actually, like the writing piece, and I'm not saying this to brag, it was literally all God downloaded, and it was a lot of my life, so it was easy. I wrote it in 30 days in 2017. And then I sat on it for like a good year before I started the publishing process, and then it was actually published in 2019. Because it's scary, you know, I talk about, you know, being abused and things like that, and it's like some of my own family members didn't even know that. So I'm really, you know, putting stuff out there that people can judge you and things like that. But it really hit me that it wasn't about me. And I think once we get that in our head, it's helpful. That doesn't mean you won't get scared. Like I still get nervous. I get scared when I'm like, I'm going to speak or anything like that. But when you think like, you know, it's not about you and there's one person, like my pastor says, there are nations waiting for you. And my husband brought it down to one person. There's one person on the other side of that, because the fact that nations were waiting on me, I'm like, oh, it's convicting, but it's overwhelming as well. And it's like, my husband will say, you know, preach like there are thousands, talk like there are thousands. There's one person, if there's one person whose life you can change. And I'm like, that's it. If I can just reach that one person, it's all worth it, you know? So if you think about, you know, being that person that you needed when you were struggling, that should be your push and your motivation.
Love it. Love it so much. That's great. And so I kind of want to just end on stuff that you might be reading,
Yeah.
or a podcast or a TV show, something that you just want to put out there and say, hey, this deserves a little more attention.
Yeah. So I can't remember the author, but I'm reading The Most Important Place on Earth. And it's about a Christ-centered home and sort of bringing up the idea that we're not just going to church on Sunday, but how are we really living like Christ, and bringing that into our homes, the way we talk to one another and the way we're having dinner around the table, how that's so important. The book is amazing, right? Because it's like, we don't want to be doing just the work of God out there, which is important, it's monumental, but when you have to impact the people within your home. And I really want to raise up world changers and children that are, you know, they're going to be warriors for the kingdom of God. And the only way that I'm going to do that is if I'm intentional about my time with them. So that book has been amazing. Podcasts, I've been listening to Life with the Lindsays and In Your Element. Amazing, amazing shows. And, you know, Life with the Lindsays is like super funny, informative, and, you know, wisdom. In Your Element is my girl just bringing on what she calls local celebrities. And it's awesome to hear people's stories and, you know, how they're, you know, transforming their communities.
So cool. Thank you for that. I love like picking up new books and podcasts. I'm always interested in what people are doing. I'm sure that's on the call too. Well, Anna, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to be putting some links there if you want to get in touch with Anna. And just thank you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for hopping on. Thank you for being obedient and publishing the book and the podcast and just doing all the things that God is putting on your heart to do. I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I appreciate what you're doing. I love what you're doing, and I love your heart for God. Keep doing what you're doing, girl.
Thanks, girl. Talk soon.
Definitely. Bye.
Bye.